How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining us today. I'm Carlos, one of your hosts of the Bring on the Blitz podcast. And if you are a Texans fan and you saw the Jets versus Texans game on Halloween night, guess what? You and a loved one may be entitled to financial compensation.
You
Hey,
should.
how's it going, guys? I'm joined here by Rios. How's it going, Rios?
As we should. And again, to quote the great Hank Hill, dang it, Bobby.
And we got the one and only Papi in the house. How's it going, Papi?
What's up, y'all? Happy post Halloween. What's the opposite of Victory Monday?
Lamentation Monday.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm at right now.
I'll apologize for being laggy. I don't know what's going on. Probably my internet. I don't know. I feel like I'm using. I got high speed. I think. I don't know, but
Hey,
yeah, I'm a
show
little
must
laggy
go on,
today.
bro. Show must go
His
on.
Show must go on.
We
His
ball.
router's connected to a potato.
That's right. Hooking it up. Yeah, there you go. It works. All right, man. Hey, so as we were saying, it's one of those where we talked about it at the very beginning of the season. Some of the areas of weakness that the Texans were showing during training camp, we were able to see some of those, and we just thought, hey, like most people, maybe it's something that will get better, and the O line will mesh throughout the season. Because if you remember last season, the Texans had somewhat of a problem with the O-line meshing last season, but they were able to get it together. The biggest example we use is that Steelers game where C.J was just phenomenal, and they were using backups on that particular game, and they were able to mesh together. And not only that, they were able to control T.J. Watt. So what's going on now with an offensive line that is not cheap by any means necessary? It's a pretty expensive O-line, and they're all quote unquote starters. So what is the problem? What is going on here? Rios, what is your take on this? What do you think is happening?
It's a multitude of factors, honestly. It's one, I would say, just when you look at how they line up, they're very, like a days go getting to the line. They take their time, which kind of, is where a lot of these false starts come from. It takes them a while to get lined up, and then by then, the play clock's at zero. Or they aren't set up right, and like the play doesn't come through, and it looks like a complete mess out there. That, and then just their body language when your franchise quarterback is getting hit. If you watch other games, like say perfect example, that Saints against the Chargers game, where that guy took a cheap shot against Herbert. That lineman dove at the Saints defender. They stand up for the quarterback. With this offensive line, Stroud he's picking himself up off the ground. Like there's no fight whatsoever in these guys. It's like they just honestly, like the body language is a little discouraging. Like they just don't care.
Is it a discipline issue? Is the lack of self-discipline?
Lack of discipline. Like I honestly don't know what the O-line coach is going through, what the game plan is during practices or whatnot, because they just don't seem prepared. It's week 10. They still don't look prepared half the time. It's very, very red flaggish. Like, come on, guys.
No, dude, this flag is not red anymore. This thing is glowing like it's nuclear type of glow red flag. The fact that, like you said, we were in week 10, and you look at last year, all the O-line issues were because like nobody could stay healthy. Everybody was getting rotated in and out of the lineup. Now that most of the guys are healthy, and like you said, Carlos, a lot of these guys are stars, like starters in almost any team going into the season.
And $100 million invested in the offensive line,
which is ridiculous, by the way. Thank God, we're still on the rookie contract for some of these guys on the rest of the team, like CJ. But this O-line, like on paper, it should be doing a lot better numbers than what they are doing. Like every single one-on-one, they're losing. Every single double team they're throwing out there, they're losing. They're missing blocks. They're mistiming even when the block is there, like it collapses within seconds. Like they cannot hold a block to save their lives. And then
like quicksand almost. Like you just get stuck and then they get blown away.
It's literally quicksand. Watching them go against any D lineman is almost like a losing battle immediately. Like there's no fight. Like you said, they're not standing up for the quarterback. It's like they're not even like trying to, oh, okay, we need to protect CJ so he can make a play. It's like, okay, I just need to not look stupid. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, it's like like men against boys out there, and it's just so disheartening to see this because I mean the Texans are struggling in not just the O line, they're struggling the offense as a whole. But you cannot construct an offense without an O line, and if we cannot get this right before the playoffs, hell, before the Lions game, it's only going to go worse from here, dude. I don't see I don't see how this gets better right now.
And you could tell that the O-line knows it. Titus Howard was quoted today.
Do they know it?
Yeah, Titus Howard was quoted today. If we do our job, nobody will talk about us anymore. Yes.
Earth-shattering news. Another breaking news. That is
correct. That is correct, Titus. No one will talk about you anymore if you do your job.
My thing is, why is it that Titus Howard is the one coming out with this? He's not the team captain. He's not the highest paid player on the team. Not just the offensive line, the highest paid player on the team. Like, it should be Laramie Tunsil that, you're the team captain. You're the one supposed to be accountable. You're the one supposed to, show leadership. Like, this dude's too busy worrying about his next Instagram post. Like, come on, man.
The C.J Stroud pressure rate, 41.4%. Like, the fact that he's getting that much pressure. And like C.J Stroud is a pocket passing quarterback. He's not a quarterback known for running a quarterback that runs and throws on the run. He's not known for that. He's known as a pocket passer. Can he do it? He's actually, if you saw at the beginning of the season, he got better this season doing that. But originally, C.J Stroud is a pocket passer. But how can you throw when there's no pocket to begin with? Like, I heard a lot of people talk about C.J Stroud and how the regression for sophomore year is apparent. Look, if you're constantly having to look because you're getting so much pressure, and now and you have to get rid of the ball as quickly as possible, and your wide receiver 1 and your wide receiver 2 are gone. I mean, I've been throwing too, and the thing is, I fear that momentarily, notice I'm using the word momentarily, I fear that momentarily it's getting to him a little bit. You can see it in the inaccurate throws. It's getting to him just a little bit. So it could, and what I'm worried about is it could be a long-term thing. That's my biggest concern.
It feels like he's getting sacked like 6 times a game, dude. We're looking at like
he was sacked 8 times against the Jets.
We're closing in like Andrew Luck territory, dude. Like this is the franchise quarterback. This is the face of the franchise. This is the guy who the Texans were waiting for, right? Yeah. A guy who can come in, alongside D'Amico and turn this team around. The Texans have done a good job putting weapons around him. We seem to be moving in a perfect direction, and then the O-line just even when the defense is playing well, the defense is what's keeping us competitive in some of these games.
Correct.
And then the O-line just goes and disappears. Like what? How can anybody, let alone CJ, put Tom Brady with that O-line? He's not getting the ball off.
Yeah, and it goes back to the play calling. Like, if you see this offensive line is struggling to contain pass rushes, why are we doing 5 to 7 step dropbacks? Like, why
they're not even sending like 6 guys at them.
It's usually just 4 getting to them.
Most of the time it's just 4 guys, and like I don't. It's just so disheartening, man.
And if you look at the pass blocking grades,
the grades.
Tunsil's elite.
It took me back to like my middle school days. That's how bad it was.
Tunsil's doing great. Kenyon Green is just a black hole on that line. Like
he might as well just stay on the bench and just
put over just 4 offensive linemen. Like, it's crazy. But like I think the issue with the line, the interior, is that they're having to cover. They were having to cover for him, and it affects how
everybody.
It affects the entire offensive line. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And when your weakest link is graded a 6 out of 100 on a pass blocking scale, that's just unacceptable. That's not even NFL level.
And if you look at film on him, a lot of the one-on-ones that he's losing is like as soon as they snap the ball, he looks like he's already off balance. So the D line, all they have to do is like just push him aside. Kenyon is a big guy, right? He's not the biggest one out there, but he's a big guy. And as soon as you use his weight against him, it's over. It's a clear path to the
Well,
quarterback.
I think with him, I think losing that weight kind of hurt his game a little bit because if you look at, he's basically just simple bull rush moves are getting him out of the way with ease, and he's falling to the ground.
Yeah, remember his rookie season, he was getting manhandled already. Now it's like it feels like it's even worse.
It's like they have Tank Dell out there on the offensive line. Like, come on,
Might
man.
as well.
I know that the thing is, whenever they bull rush him, simple swim moves, man, they got him turning sideways, and that's one of the worst places you could put a lineman in, turning sideways, because now you're not in the position to actually block for your quarterback. I was looking at some of those some of those tapes that you were talking about, Papi, and like he would be turned around so much, especially against the Jets. Now, obviously covering for I'm trying to think, Williams, is that correct, for the Jets?
I mean,
Quinn Williams, yeah, it's not an easy task.
It's not.
Depth by all means, because he's a great player.
That is,
but then they put Kenyon Green on him, which I get, but I figured you would think, hey, Quinn Williams, he's great at what he does. He dominated. He took his lunch, gave him a wedgie,
yeah,
and then proceeded to bully him on the way home. Like it was.
Yeah. I hadn't took his girlfriend, I took his house, took his job, took his car, took his children, like everything, dude. It was so bad. It was so bad. And like you said, like it's not like it's the easiest matchup out there, but it felt like the Jets defense was playing against the Texans on rookie mode. Like they were just waltzing through. Like you seen the meme of the security guard checking.
Oh, you pass or not, or whatever.
Like, he's like staring off in the distance. He's just like patting people down. Like, all right.
Oh yeah.
That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like the whole 4 quarters, dude.
And it goes back to what we mentioned earlier about them not looking prepared. Like you saw the film from Sunday when Kenyon Green was getting bullied. What made you think that he was going to be able to
hold his own?
Better pass rusher and Quinn Williams, like. And you don't game to try to help them out. Like,
so then you start to question: is this like a talent issue? Like we just don't have the right personnel, or is this like a coaching?
It stems like I know Chris Strouser, the offensive line coach. That it's the second year with the offensive line, has been the offensive line coach. I mean, he's one of those guys that you probably just got. I heard it on 610 today. Like it's probably one of those positional coaches that you get that didn't really have much experience in this particular scheme. With Bobby Slowick, and you just you got the guy, and it's not like you can let him go now, because at this point it's like, well, you have this guy. Is the guy that you get right now going to be better or going to be worse? Especially, right? You're gonna have to ride on. You have to ride on until the end of the season, and so it all just depends. He's probably not the right guy for this particular scheme, and maybe some of these guys aren't the best for the scheme, and it all ties down just because look, honestly, Shaq Mason this season, I was excited when they signed him last season. Because I can still remember when as soon as Shaq Mason got signed from Tampa Bay, it told me that the Texans were going to get a quarterback. They were drafting a quarterback because you focused immediately on protection. Mm-hmm. Shaq Mason last season was phenomenal against the run. He was fine. This season, I don't know if it's age catching up to him or what, but this season he has not been the same Shaq Mason as previous years. Obviously, Kenyon Green, everybody knows the deal with Kenyon Green. We just talked about it. And then Juice Scruggs has been inconsistent. Like he's got decent games, he's got bad games, he's got okay games, it's all over the charts.
He's struggling with the communication because the communication for the protections comes from the center. And Patterson last year did a phenomenal job with that. And I think this year, Juice Scruggs, I don't think that's his strong suit. I think possibly they might have to move him to guard just because, with the injuries, they haven't really signed anyone. We don't foresee any trades. So they're going to have to, make some shuffling along the lines.
And that is one of the biggest problems. How are we not talking about trades or being like it's already too late to be proactive about this. We're on week 10. Like right now it's like whatever this team is, now, this is the team that if we make the playoffs at this point, because we can go on a losing spree the way the offensive line and the offense as a whole has been playing. If this team does make the playoffs, they're going to get bounced from the first round.
Oh yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely.
Like most definitely. So like, how are we not talking about making trades and making
Ooh,
changes?
I
I know
think at
you
this
can't get
point,
rid of the coaching. I get
No,
that.
no.
But some of these players are just not up for the task right now. So you got to figure something else out.
well, I think a lot of people are expecting to try to trade for alignment, but it's kind of hard to get a
Yeah.
starting quality offensive lineman at this point of the season. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of teams that are, they have 2 wins, their season's basically over at this point. So they're going to be looking to sell, stockpile draft picks.
Yeah, you can throw a couple, a fourth rounder here, a fifth rounder here for
I think the
something.
issue is I would assume for Houston, just because of the offseason that they had, I think that like if they're calling about trades, I think they're getting a different type of tax versus like if someone else was calling them. Because
Yeah,
we know
right.
teams
Yeah.
they're not given the whole lot to get picks, but like they
Okay, but then, do you think they this personnel is just gonna turn it around?
No, no. I the thing right now is that to back up Rios' point, I don't think at this moment that I don't think the Texans are going to trade. Also, the Houston Chronicle sent out a report today, also saying the same thing. They weren't going to trade because the mentality of I believe Nick Caserio is right now you'd be the cat right now they just don't have the money to probably pay somebody else to come in like a guard or somebody in the offensive lineman that's of quality, and also they probably want like a high draft pick and possibly some more things on it. So I think it may be in his mind it may be too high of a remember the whole point was low risk high reward. This would be high risk maybe perhaps low reward, so counterintuitive of what their philosophy is.
yeah, because I think right now they only have about 5 million available in cap space.
Yeah.
So they would have to do a lot of restructuring, and I think it's kind of late at this point, especially because the deadline's
Mhm.
tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Like they
Yeah,
don't
but
have
but I
time.
mean, everything that we're talking about is completely voided if CJ gets injured.
Yeah,
Just look,
Oh yeah.
just look at. All the rest of the Texans offense is falling like flies. Hopefully, we saw some reports today. Some of the guys in the injury reserves are coming back. I don't think they've announced Nico for Battle Red Day just yet.
they've said he's day to day, which
Day to day.
it's not a good sign if we're being honest.
But honestly, even if Nico were to come back, I wouldn't want to force him back into a game against the Lions, who have been playing out of their minds the last few weeks.
Yeah, hold on. We'll get into that one. That one's gonna be a whole different, a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I guess we should
Yes,
go with our
but I
areas.
agree with you 100%. The Lions have been playing out of their mind. Before we do that, let's head into areas of. I mean, I feel like we just shared all of our areas of concern. To be
Yeah.
honest with you,
Well,
so I
we can
think
dive a little bit deeper into it.
yeah. Let's go into our primary areas of concern, and we just kind of gave you a synopsis of all around, but primary area of concern for me, I mean, I can sit here and say the O line. That's the obvious thing, but I'm actually going to talk about the defense. I like Jalen Petrie. I do. I do. I wrote an article about him in the star position, and how he was probably going to be utilized. Just basically an extra linebacker. There's been times where it has worked well. There's times where it hasn't worked well. But I think that's in me is just I think that's the lack of the creativity to do with defense. Don't get me wrong. I'm not down on the defense. Defense actually has been a very bright spot for the Houston Texans. Uh, in theory, one thing that did bug me though is the touchdown against Devontae Adams. You had Jalen Petrie covering
Yeah.
Devontae Adams. Jalen Petrie is not a slot corner.
No.
He's not. I mean,
He's-
he was struggling last year as a safety. Like
he
Jalen
ranks
Petrie should
low
not
out.
be covering Devontae Adams one-on-one. That's something that Stingley should be doing, or somebody else, but definitely. And I think that's just a little bit of the lack of creativity at that aspect. Like, I didn't agree with the call. I'm not a coach, but I didn't agree with the call. I was like, why would you have Jalen Petrie covering Devontae Adams? And so at that point, it should be like, it should be Derek Stingley one-on-one locked in. I mean, honestly, if you look back at it, Derek Stingley had only whenever he was covering Devontae Adams, there was only like 2 catches. But
He had a phenomenal game.
he did have a phenomenal game. Yes, Derek Stingley has gotten beat. He has gotten beat, but he's made up for it.
That's gonna happen. That's gonna
It's
happen.
gonna happen. It's one-on-one. One man's gonna win, one man's gonna lose. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't go your way. But honestly, I thought that area of concern where the Texans are utilizing Jalen Petrie a little bit in the slot to cover top receivers. Not a good idea. I thought that was a little area of concern for me. I like Petrie. I think he's actually done better this season than the previous. Last season, everybody was concerned.
Yeah.
He's had some highlights. He's had more highlights this season than he did last season. But I think it's a little bit. I think there's even now in this position where they have him, where it's basically, I mean, he's like a hybrid linebacker, safety. It's like, yeah, it's there's areas where it works, there's areas where it doesn't. But I feel like they're still like trying to figure out what to do with Jalen Petrie at some parts. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like they're still trying to figure it out sometimes with him.
Well, because if he has safety, part of your job is also play coverage, and he is a below average person in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, numbers back it up, the film backs it up, but they don't really
Man coverage is his kryptonite.
But they don't have anybody else. And it goes back to the offseason. You had a guy like Justin Simmons.
Simmons sitting right there waiting for somebody to give him a call.
And they felt, I think one of the issues, it's not one of my areas of concern, but what I've noticed is that D'Amico's very loyal to his guys.
Yes.
Almost to a fault. And I get, backing your guys, but at some point you got to make tough business decisions. And not signing because Jimmy Ward is going to be missing his fifth straight game.
Yeah,
and he has not played a full season in I don't know how many years.
Mm-hmm.
They should have had an insurance plan, and it wasn't that expensive for the Falcons to sign Justin Simmons. They could have worked some magic to get some more cap space.
Especially Nick Caserio, right? Especially Nick, the brilliant mind of Nick Caserio when it comes to things like that, to fleecing teams. Like we did to the Browns. Like you could have gotten something.
Yeah, he could have figured out some kind of cap magic to be able to sign, because he didn't sign for a huge deal with the Falcons. Like it's kind of mind-boggling. Like you had an instant upgrade for a huge area of need, and you just like, I just trust my guys, and it has not. They haven't rewarded his faith because Jimmy Ward is just he's good to miss at least 4 games a season, at least.
And
Papi,
one of the biggest issues too with the defense is not even their fault either. It's because the offense can't stay on the field.
They can't sustain drives.
The defense is out there more often than not, and eventually, even if you're having a good game, eventually you're gonna get a lapse of judgment, and then you're gonna get beat by Davante Adams or Garrett Wilson.
You're bound to give up a play.
This is a Jets team that has been struggling all year. Yeah. Davante Adams had 2 games prior to playing the Texans, and he wasn't very good with the Jets. And
averaging like 30 yards a game.
That. And Garrett Wilson was dropping like the easiest passes too. And then
they lost to the Patriots, the worst team in the NFL.
They lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Steelers, who are also inconsistent. And then you go against the Texans. I'm like, yeah, our defense is what's been keeping us in games. That and our kicker, but.
They held the fourth quarter in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you can't really blame Kaimi for anything at this point.
I can't. I mean, the only
our most consistent player has been him.
100%. But if you're going on that, hold on, Bob. If you're going on that, he did leave 9 points on the board last game against the Jets. That
game, dude, I feel like it was lost the moment. From the first. After the first quarter, I was like, we are not winning this game. There's no way we're winning this game.
No, after that Garrett Wilson touchdown, I mean, that dude did the Jordan logo.
It was sick.
And you can't fault Lassiter because he had great coverage on the guys.
Great coverage.
It was one of those plays where
it was a 5% chance of catching or something like that. One of them, I think it was a shin catch of one of them, and then the other one was incredible catches.
What exactly is a catch? Because if you go back to the previous,
nobody knows. Nobody knows what a catch is.
I won 2 feet in bounds, and they still said it wasn't a catch. I'm like, so what?
Nobody knows.
Well, 2 feet in bounds doesn't count, but a shin does. Like, let's get some consistency on these calls, guys. Like,
nobody knows, man. They wrote
the ankle must be turned at a 45-degree angle in order for it to actually be a catch. But if it's at a 90, if it turns into a right angle, not a catch. But if it's an acute, you better believe that's a catch. It's going to be at that point now where we're going to start measuring that.
Right. But no, so that kind of transitions to where my area concern is the play calling. And it's been my biggest gripe since week 1, since last season, honestly. And like in our group chats, like during the playoff game against the Ravens, I called it out. Like the play calling is just completely lackluster. Like it felt like Bobby Slow didn't have those guys prepared at all. Like he just I'll put something together. We'll figure it out. And that's how this entire season feels like. Honestly, it's just
as you said that, I pictured him smiling and saying it, just like, "All right, guys, we're gonna do this, and let's just hope for the best."
Yeah.
My thing is, so let me read a quote from D'Amico. It's a long one, so bear with me. So he was asked on what he's seen as causing the offense to not produce as well in the second half as they do in the first half. And I quote, "For us, we've done a great job of moving the ball to get across midfield. I'm very encouraged with the progress of moving the football because we can move it when we need to. It's just when we've gotten across midfield, we haven't been able to get points. And those red zone opportunities, they come up very slim in games. And when they are there, of course, we want to capitalize and be better. We haven't been really good in the red zone and on the third down where you sustain those drives and score points. So that's been a focus. We understand that. And we understand we have to make some adjustments and put our guys in a better position to score points." End quote.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What did any of that mean?
It's a bunch of word salad. It says the play calling is an issue. I mean, I get it's coach speak. Oh, we got to execute later. We got to play. But it takes me back to the Bill O'Brien days.
That's exactly what it felt like. It's like, oh, we're good at moving the ball. We can do it when we need to, except when we really need to.
Focus on the positives. Focus on the positives, and then ignore the negatives.
Ignore everything. I just got to coach better. So what?
It's like I could just go out there in the press conference and be like, "Hey, at least we didn't get blown out."
Right? Like, hey, but we scored though, right? But we scored.
Hey, the important thing is that we all had fun, right?
We had a good time.
Teamwork.
So you see this offensive line struggles in pass protection. You see this struggle with stunts. We had mentioned in the previous episodes the way to negate that, spread out the offense so it's just not as congested, so they can't run those stunts because they're all spread out. So you can kind of see who's going to be blitzing, who's not going to be blitzing. They continue to not do that. They continue to have these 5 to 7 step dropbacks when if the quarterback's having less than 2 seconds to get rid of the ball, and these plays take around 4 to 5 seconds to develop, and you're missing your top 2 receivers, the guys that can actually get separation and you can work the quick passing game. Outside of Tank Dell, none of the receivers can really separate. You watching some of the highlights from the game, well, lowlights, honestly, of the game.
What highlights? Might have been like 2.
Outside of Tank Dell, no one can get separation. Robert Woods was probably the second best at getting separation, but it was like less than 30% of his routes he was getting separation. Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson even worse.
And with those dropbacks, you're turning a 2nd and 5 into a 2nd and 10, basically. And if you do find Dell on an out route, or if you find Schultz in the middle of the field, you're still not getting the first down.
There was a couple times where they kind of utilized the quick passing game, worked the middle of the field, which they should have did against the Packers, but for some reason they didn't. They did it in the first half against the Jets, but the Jets adjusted in the second half, kind of took that away, and
that seems to be one of the more obvious issues. I feels like teams are making adjustments against the Texans on the second half, but the Texans are not adjusting to their adjustments
at all. Mm-hmm. Like it's like they're playing chess and Bobby's playing, Connect 4. It's like, Sarah, like what's the discussion at halftime? Because you made no adjustments. They made adjustments. They took away the middle of the field. They realized, the interior is the weak point of the offense. They're going to continue to attack it. Since the week 3 against the Vikings, every team has utilized the same game plan. You run simple stunts.
You can even go back to week 1 against the Colts. Like that whole line was already telling you that they weren't there to protect CJ.
Yeah. They did. So I will give him a little bit of. He did get a little bit more creative getting the ball Tank Dell, and he had himself a game, his best game of the season so far.
I mean, yeah, only because he had no other targets.
But other than that, there was just no creativity again. Like they had a couple good plays in the first half, they just couldn't finish in the end zone. And second half, there was no adjustments, and they got away from. So they had success running the ball in the first half. Like Joe Mixon was on pace for 200
It
yards.
was all Joe Mixon.
So
And then in the second half, he took it out of his hands. I'm like, they're clearly struggling to stop Joe Mixon. And instead, you want to run these wide receiver screens, these
Squeeze.
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 Boy, I had a speech impediment issue.
Squeeze.
Hey, but to back up your point, Rios,
ads was 5-7 step back passes. Like, what are we doing, man?
What
like,
are we doing? Yeah,
So-
it makes no sense.
So the Texans are averaging only 9.1 points in the second half, which is 24th in the NFL. They're
They have
averaging
so-
just 5 points in the second half in the last 3 games, which is ranked for 30th.
And
Guess what?
How many have they
Guess
given
what?
up on the second?
It's a recurring issue because of last season. They averaged 10.9 points in the second half last season, which was 14th in the league. So it's kind of been a recurring issue since last season.
Last season wasn't as glaring as this season. I can't remember the last time they scored a second half touchdown on offense.
Right. It's been a while.
And to go back to the quote that D'Amico had said earlier, they are struggling in the red zone. They are one of the worst red zone teams right now. And again, it goes back to the creativity. Like it's reminiscent of the Kubiak days where you can almost call the play out because it was that predictable. And it feels like
opposing defenses are reading right through whatever play calls they're doing.
What perfectly captures my point with the play calling, why is your quarterback running a fade route in the red zone? When you have struggled all season to put up points in the second half, you have a golden opportunity to put 6 on the board. You're throwing a fade route to your quarterback.
My thing is like, how is Joe Mixon not getting 4 touchdowns a game? Is the way this offense is been so lackluster as far as passing.
Simple answer.
Ball.
Sloak is dying to call those screens that go for negative yards. He's like, it's gonna work this time.
Yeah, like, we managed to make a 70-yard drive. You know what we need right now? -5. Let's do it. Mixon, you know what to do.
All right.
Wide receivers, do not block.
Do not block at all. All right. So at this point, since we're about to end it real quick, let's talk about who your standout shout-out players are. Rios, I guess you started, and I'll go second. Papi, and then you go on at the end.
Oh yeah, like I mentioned earlier, my guy that gets flowers is gonna be Tank Dell. He had the best game of the season when they really needed production at the wide receiver position. Because going into the game, a lot of people were a little concerned because you're down your top 2 receivers. Tank Dell up to that point had been struggling a little bit, not for lack of
a lot of it.
He's just been struggling to haul the ball in, but also like Slug wasn't doing him any favors. Some of the plays they kind of called up for him. They called up a few plays that were reminiscent of last year, having him on the outside, let him get into space. Because if you get him in space, he's gonna, pick up yards. There was the one throw that one big completion that he had that I think if CJ had a little bit more time in the pocket, that's a walk-in touchdown. But he kind of had to get rid of the ball quickly. It's still a big gain, but because he had beat both the corner and the safety. If he had caught it in stride, that's easy.
He's got daylight. Yeah, daylight to run into.
I'm gonna go with Joe Mixon for me. Joe Mixon, I feel like has been, since his return, has been, phenomenal. Has kept this offense, no pun intended, running. He's had. Say it again.
It's a whole different team with Joe Mixon.
Yeah,
it's a whole different team, and like it's so crazy because you still haven't really. You saw one game. Like with Nico Collins, and that was the Bears game, and after that, and I apologize, and the Colts game as well, and he's averaging over 100 yards since he's been on the field. So I'm gonna give definitely Joe Mixon his flowers. He deserves them. He fights hard. Like there's nothing about Joe Mixon right now that he has done wrong. He's been a great addition to the Texans, I think, as everybody else expected him to be. He's the whole reason why this Texans offense is being anywhere near productive. And it's a travesty, like you said, that they took away the ball from him during the second half because I felt like you had a little rhythm going. You had something against the Jets that you could have utilized. Run, wear that defense down, and then just keep running the ball with Joe Mixon if you can't do that. It'll alleviate pressure off of C.J. Stroud, that's for sure. If you keep doing run plays, some little check downs, like all these things that you can utilize. What's going on with the tight ends? Do the Texans have tight ends that are not blockers? Like, why don't you utilize your tight ends like Dalton Schultz?
You would have thought in the game where you're missing your two biggest wide receivers, you would use more your tight ends.
They did a little bit in the first half, but they
went away from it. Like,
I don't get what Bobby Sloak is doing after the second half. Honestly, it's just it boggles the mind.
It's the play calling, the offensive line. People can argue back and forth about the play calling, but I know for sure the biggest concern is the offensive line. But it all ties in together in some way. If this is the type of scheme that you're running, the Shanahan system, you have to have an offensive line that can protect the quarterback, and the whole point is disguising the run and a throw. This is the Kyle Shanahan system. But when you have an effective offensive line, if you don't have that, it doesn't work. And it's to the point where, again, going back to it, yes, CJ has had some questionable throws because he does try to play hero ball. He does this. He says it himself.
He has to.
And he has to. Like, there was one play in particular where I think he ran it, but he had John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson across the field open. Granted, though, they only had like less than a yard of separation from the corner. So I get it why he would do that, but still, like, the hero ball thing, and he self-admittedly said, like, I have to stop holding on to the ball too long. But I get it. You have all these things that you're dealing with, the pressures. The pressures have gone up consistently after just about every game since week one. Yep. They have consistently gone up. And it's so I understand why he would feel the way he does, why they're, again, going back to what I said earlier, some of the inaccuracies. But man, it is a point where you're supposed to protect your quarterback and you're not doing it. And that is a disservice that you're doing to C.J. Stroud at that point if you're not protecting the franchise quarterback that you tried so hard to get.
Yep.
They don't exactly grow on trees, and you're starting his development a little bit. You're throwing off his internal clock because as soon as he gets the ball, he realizes I got to get rid of it because I'm ready.
And if he keeps getting hit 8 times a game.
Look at Andrew Luck. If you look at Andrew Luck and the injuries he sustained because the Colts did a terrible job of building an offensive line around him. Like, you would have thought this dude was in a car accident every week with some of those injuries.
Some of those
that's honestly my
cars
because he's out there running for his life every play, and it's going to take a toll. He's on pace for getting sacked 60 times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like top 5 in NFL history.
So really quick, let me read the pressure rate. Week 1, 31.6. Week 2, 30.8. Week 3, 35.3. Here's where week 4, 28.3, a little bit less, but week 5, 35.7. Week 6, 31.4. Week 7, 51.7%. Week 8, 46.2, and finally week 9, 47.8%.
It's only getting worse.
Yeah, it's only getting worse. So because they know that that's the weak spot. NFL is the worst rate. The worst rate on the season is 43%. CJ has gone above those with a pressure rate. That is incredibly insane.
That's unacceptable. Like, as an offensive line, you gotta have some kind of pride in what you do. Like, if your quarterback's getting hit play after play, you're on pace for 60 sacks. Like, at some point, your pride as an athlete, as a competitor, has to kick in. Like, come on, man.
Before we move we move on to the Lions preview. My standout player does not play for the Texans. Nobody played well that game. It made me sick watching that game. I want to throw a shout out to Jalen Coker.
Our boy.
Hey,
Another show. Got his first TD against the Saints. My boy. Shout out to you, my brother.
Actually,
I'm still waiting for that jersey.
He got his first touch on the week before, but he had a pretty good game against the Saints too.
Oh, he did get one. Yeah, you're right. But it's funny because
I was gonna save this and send it to him, but now you look ridiculous, so I won't.
It's funny because he's a Saints guy. So the fact that he got the win against them, yeah, I remember.
Oh, it made it much sweeter for you, Papi. Is that what
Yeah,
it was?
it
Got
did.
it. Okay, I got you.
I'm like, I know it hurt. I know it
No,
hurt.
I tagged Papi on Jalen's post on Instagram today.
Yeah, no, I seen that. I was like, yeah.
Shout out to Jalen Coker, yes, wide receiver for the Panthers. He
Number
was
18.
on one of our shows before. Great time
Before he got
right before he
drafted,
got drafted. Amazing guy. Shout out to Jalen Coker.
Super cool guy. Super cool guy.
Yeah. He's still but the best part is he chose Charmander. Oh yeah, it's Squirtle, right?
We had asked him who was his starter Pokemon. Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur.
It's okay. He's
the Bulbasaur guy.
It's okay to be wrong, guys. It's okay to be wrong. I forgive you guys. I forgive you.
You were outnumbered.
On stats,
you were ready to walk out.
On stats, Bulbasaur is the best.
At what?
At what? Getting beat,
brother. When's the last time you guys played those games?
Like 2 days ago. I have a Nintendo Switch, bro. Anyway, let's. All right. Back to it. Okay, let's go to the line. I'm sorry. Were you finished with your standout shout out, Papi?
Yes.
All right, Jalen
Coker.
Coker. All right. All right. Now, also prayers up for Chris Olave, man. He took that big hit as well against the Saints. That was
it looked bad.
That was a bad one. I think that's his 5th known concussion in the league, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, man.
That's not a good one.
Wish him a speedy recovery for sure.
That's the second one this season, I believe. Second or third.
Yeah, in the season, yeah. And I think
this one looked worse.
This one looked pretty bad, man. He was carted out. It was not a pretty sight.
Yeah, I saw some of the updates. He has a movement in his extremity, so that's a good sign. He's being able to respond, so that's a good sign. So hopefully, he speedy recovery to him.
Yeah, I hope they don't rush him back into it. I mean, the Saints are 2-7 right now, so there's no need.
There's no rush.
Yeah. Season's over.
So going over to the Lions, the Texans go off against the Lions on primetime and Sunday Night Football. I would have said at the beginning of the season, I was like, you know what? This is the Texans. I'm excited for this game because the Texans, this is going to really show, what the Texans are made of. I mean, if you really think about it, it's still going to show what the Texans are made of, by the way. That's still there. But at the beginning of the season, it's like, you know what? The Lions are going to wear those black and blue unis. The Texans are going to debut those. I don't know what happened here. All right, the Texans are. Oh, look, I'm not lagging anymore. Hey, there you go. So I'm all happy by myself. Shut up. Anyway, the Texans are debuting the battle red with the candy paint chrome helmet. Like if you're a native Houstonian, like that is your bread and butter right there. But going into this game, it's like a bittersweet feeling. Bittersweet because the Texans are in prime time. Bitter because it's against the Lions, who are
the best team in the league right now.
Like that, and then facing the Texans issues that they have going on right now, it's not a good feeling. Especially, there was also a rumor, and again, it's a rumor right now again, but it was brought up by a few people. So Darius Smith might get traded to the Lions before the trade deadline. He would be coming over from the Browns. Heck of a player on the defensive end, and obviously defense, a heck of a player. And then, I mean, going over to the Lions, which is already a pretty stacked team, a talented team, against the Texans' treacherous offensive line, that's just more of a disaster.
Recipe for disaster, because they blitz at a high rate, and as we've mentioned multiple times on this episode, like they just can't pick up simple stunts. Now imagine them sending 6-7 guys.
It's over.
Charging at CJ, it's gonna be a bloodbath.
It's gonna be a long night. I'm hoping for player safety at that point. I'm just hoping that everybody walks out safe at this point.
The one silver lining for the Texans is they haven't allowed a quarterback to pass for over 175 yards at home all season. That's the one thing that may keep them in the game. But you're asking a tall task of that defense to stop that. Not just the passing attack. That two-headed monster running back, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery.
That's ridiculous.
Good luck with that.
The amount of weapons they have, dudes. Amon-Ra, Laporta, it's such a well-stacked team, such a well-built team.
You get Jameson Williams back. They have loaded.
I just pray that if the game starts to get away from them, they just throw the backups out there, man. I don't honestly, we're gonna get to predictions in a second, but I'm just gonna get it out of the way. the Texans are not winning this game. They're not.
Okay.
I'm afraid it's going to be a situation kind of like against the Vikings where
Minnesota.
Yeah, it got out of hand way too quickly.
It's going to snowball quickly. It's going to be one play that just ignites the Lions, and they're just going to steamroll. They've been steamrolling every team. They've been averaging over 40 points a game the last few weeks.
It's going to be, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be 35-9.
Isn't it weird that the Texans are 5 point? The Lions are 5 point favorites over the Texans? Just 5 points?
Well,
it's only because it's at home.
Yeah.
Because typically the home team gets favored by at least 3 points. The fact that the Lions are favored by 5, that's an 8-point swing. They expect a blowout.
Yeah, it's only because it's
and Vegas was pretty right about the Jets beating the Texans.
Oh yeah, they were pretty right about that.
So yeah, if you're gonna bet, I would bet the over on points because the Lions, they like to run up the score, and hey, I don't blame them.
They have no sympathy for nobody.
Yeah. You saw what they did to Green Bay, and that's a team that the Texans struggled against, and they lost against.
They lost. They lost by like 3 points, wasn't it?
Yeah, we lost. Yeah, they lost by 3 points.
Yeah.
The Lions, they just completely dismantled.
Dominated.
Yeah.
So if they did it to Green Bay, I can't expect good news for Texans on this one. I'm gonna. So let's go with score predictions because we gotta end the show. Papi, let's start off with you, brother. What do you? What is your score prediction?
35-9, dude. I think all of our points come from Kaimi. I don't think we're gonna get a single touchdown. I think even if Nico comes back, and that's a big if, maybe we might stay in the game a little bit longer. But honestly, I don't see this offense putting a lot of points. And like we said, the Lions are just on another level. Them and Baltimore, I would say, probably the two best teams in the league. Obviously, the Chiefs are up there, but the Lions are probably playing the best football all year. So the most consistent. So I don't see how the Texans get away with a win. Honestly, I feel like a competitive game would be almost like a win in my book, the way the Texans been playing, but a loss is a loss at the end of the day. And like I said, if the game starts to get out of hand, just throw the backups out there. Just give Davis Mills the second half. See if he can do something out there.
Rios, what is your prediction, bud?
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be a bloodbath. I have zero faith in this offensive line. They're going to I would expect at least 9 to 10 sacks. I have zero faith in that, especially if they get to Darius Smith. It's a wrap. Mm-hmm. They have shown zero fight. They've shown zero ability to protect the quarterback. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be like 63-17. Like they're going to run up that score,
dude. If they score more than 50, I'm not going to do the show. I'm just
Anthony Richardson right now doing this.
Yeah, I'm gonna be I'm coming out. I'm not gonna do this.
Like, it's gonna be like when they played Dallas. They had offensive linemen running routes. They showed zero respect for their opponent, and I think it's gonna be a very similar situation. You're gonna see Sewell out there, running a go route.
Yeah,
and he's probably gonna score a touchdown.
Wide out, just doing the wide out.
He's probably gonna score a touchdown on Jalen Petrie because Petrie can't cover anybody. Not even an offensive
cover line, man. We have issues now. I'm gonna take the loss too. I think it's a unanimous 3 L's for us. I'm gonna be a little easier. I think it's a 4-score game. I'm gonna say 28-7, and I'm being generous if I say 7 because that's only if Nico
being generous
comes back.
For 28. They're gonna score more than that.
Yeah. 20. As I said, I'm being generous. 28-7. If Nico comes back, if Nico doesn't, 28-6. Okay, two field goals by Kaimi. I just can't see the offense really doing much here. You might get a Joe Mixon touchdown. I can't count out Joe Mixon, so I'll still stick with 7. Joe Mixon, I can't count him out. I think he gets his. I say 28-7. I think CJ's. I hate to say it, but I think CJ is going to get sacked several times in this game, and it sucks because the Texans are debuting that candy red. That phenomenal.
I say we should just skip it.
If you're gonna lose, you're gonna lose dressed in your best. Okay.
No.
Losing style.
They should
but
just skip
if it is a bloodbath,
it's
it's red, so it doesn't matter.
No.
And I was being generous with them scoring 17. They've struggled to score more than 20 points.
Yeah, that's why I said 9. I think it's gonna be all field goals.
9, just 3 field goals back to back.
That's it. I think going into halftime is going to be like 20 something to 6.
You know what these scorelines remind me of? When we first started recording, and we basically predicted losses every single week. That's what this feels like right now.
Well, when you don't have an offensive line that you can rely on, dude, like it's like, what can you expect? Again, at the beginning of the season, you could have told me, I was like, oh, this is a game that we had marked. All of us, I think, had marked in our calendars, like, this is going to be the game that these are 2 Super Bowl contenders. That's what we said at the beginning. This are 2 Super Bowl contenders. And well, we weren't the only ones.
We were only half right.
Yeah. You know who said it? You know who said that they weren't and was on the show? The general himself, John McClain, said the Texans are contenders, and everybody was like, what? How dare you? He was right.
No, he knows more than us, for sure.
He was right. And he's like, it's one of those things that was like, wow. It was insane. Not that he predicted it, because I'm sure he sees more than we do. It's just the fact that the fallout from game 1 to now, it's obviously the issues were always lingering there. But I think with the Jets, I think with the loss of the Jets did, expose a lot of the concern in the Texans. And I think moving forward, like right now, I'm dreading this game against the Lions. And guess what? I'm dreading the game against the Ravens, and I'm dreading the game against the Chiefs. Yeah. Like it's at that point now, and it sucks because it's like, these are games that we had marked down like, oh, these are going to be, the games where you see where the Texans are. But now at this point, it's like,
well, we've seen where they are.
A long ride.
Yeah, they started off the season looking like contenders. Right now, they're honestly pretenders. If they do make the playoffs, it's going to be an ugly loss in the wild card round.
And the Lions did keep their end of the deal, like Sports Radio 610 said. The Lions ended up keeping their end of the deal where they're contenders, but the Texans, man, it's insane to see the fallout right now. I honestly don't expect Slowick here next season. I don't expect Chris Strausser, the offensive line coach, next season. I don't see half of the O-line next season, but maybe you got to pay him. I don't know, man. It is insane. It's almost like you have to rebuild the entire offensive scheme.
It's almost like this year was almost like a throwaway year at this point.
And that's the thing, though, because you're in that Super Bowl window with your quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the window is that rookie contract, and it's a disgrace wasting an entire season of his second season, really.
After the rookie season he had.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well,
let's call it.
That's going to be it. Let's call it a night. That's going to be it for us today. Please subscribe to our channel if you like what you see. Down there at the bottom, at BBlitzPod. Of course, follow us on our Instagram account, at BBlitzPod. We post a lot of college football content on there as well, and some of our content also. So it's a lot of fun. It's not just NFL stuff. It's college ball as well. Right now, there's a lot of great college ball games going on as well. So please follow us up there. As where you can find us, of course, this is all part of the RS Skina network. Follow them up at the X account, at RS Skina, just like you see it there. And, of course, part of our friends over there, RS Skina, are the guys from the Full Steam Ahead crew right there. Any MLB Astros news, which the Astros did have a lot of news today. Letting some guys go, keeping some guys, offering Alex Bregman a deal as well. Hopefully, let's see if he takes it or not. Again, any details you want to find out about the MLB and the Astros, please check out the guys at the Full Steam Ahead. They got amazing insight. They're credentialed there for the Astros. Check them out. Great content. That's going to be it for us this week. Let's just sit tight on that Sunday game, and we'll see what happens. That's going to be it for us tonight, guys. See y'all next week, and peace.